And I want to start the video today by apologizing to some folks who were having problems with the video feed. For some reason, the one that got uploaded got cut off at about 4 minutes in. Our video is unofficial. I provide it because it's a nice side effect from recording the show. It makes recording the show easier to do it over the Hangout, which gives you video, which gives you YouTube, which gives you a downloadable version. But we provide it without warranty. Doesn't mean we don't care, though. And we got some great folks out there volunteering and putting together that unofficial feed, which you may not have realized was unofficial, but you might be subscribed to. And so I've re-uploaded yesterday's show and made sure it's full on archive.org. So you may have to go back and refresh a feed or two to find it. But apologies for that. And let's get ready and do a show, shall we? Is that you, Darren?
Yeah, you can still hear that too?
I can still hear that, yeah.
Dude, it's like a Model M. Okay, I'm going to have to mute every time I type anything. Or I'm switching to pen and paper.
Or just type, like, really slow. I don't know. It probably won't be as bad once we get the show going. So here we go.
Last note, I promise. All right, we're good.
This is Siri. The Daily Tech News Show by Tom Merritt is brought to you by all of the supporters at Patreon. If you also want to support Tom, go to patreon.com/acedetect. That is patreon.com/ACEDTECT. And thanks as always for listening to the Daily Tech News Show.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, July 18th, 2014. I'm Tom Merritt, and back on a Friday, it's been a couple weeks, Darren Kitchen from hack5.org is here.
So
been too long, absolutely.
Yeah. It's good to be back on the internet. I was practically offline for a week at the hacker camp that is known as Tor Camp in Nia Bay, Washington. And yeah, it's good to get some packets again. Let me tell you, being offline for a week will do something to you. Don't recommend it.
Darren and I are going to talk a little bit about drones, which won't surprise you, but we got a really good email from a guy who goes by High-Tech Ag Pilot, Michael McDonald. He's going to join us. Michael's here as well. Thank you for being willing at like the last minute, literally like 5 minutes before the show, being willing to just jump on and join this crazy show.
Yeah, I love the show, man. So, yeah, if you have any questions, just ask.
Oh, yeah. We'll be coming at you right after the headlines. And, of course, Len Peralta is here to illustrate the show. Len, do you got your brain in the right place? Do you know where you're going? You always do.
Oh, I definitely have my brain in the right place, and I think today's image will be a lot of fun.
For those not watching video, most of you, Len is wearing a Born to Kill Darth Vader t-shirt, which is awesome.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the headlines. Engadget reports the European Commission says Google is responding to its request to change how in-app purchases are handled, but Apple is not. At the end of September, Google will no longer use the word free to describe games that have in-app purchases and will guide apps not to encourage children to buy things in their apps. Apple already implements alerts warning of in-app purchases, and they have other parental controls, as well as a whole kids section in the App Store, but they have not responded to the EC with new strategies. Habituela Condolci and SP Sheridan submitted this topic on the subreddit. Thanks to them. The test pages must have worked since Engadget reports Amazon has officially launched Kindle Unlimited, and all you can read. Don't eat the ebooks. All you can read ebook subscription service for $9.99 a month. The service claims to have more than 600,000 books and thousands of audio books. Not all books from major publishers are part of the service, but there's a lot. You can get your Harry Potter, your Lord of the Rings, your Hunger Games. Independent publishers, like myself, must agree not to sell their ebooks anywhere but Amazon in order to be part of this service. SP Sheridan and Managed Mike submitted this topipic on the subreddit. Darren, I don't like that.
Why not? Don't you want to make an exclusive
I would love
agreement?
to have my books be part of the service, but I don't want to take them down from every other store just to do it.
Just don't tell them it's on archive.org for free.
No, but they found it. I tried that with Chronology of Tech History, actually.
Did you really?
And
That's
they
awesome.
found the free version and was like, this is available for free somewhere. And I'm
Wait,
like, you busted me.
Yeah, you could be like, I will allow you to be the exclusive one. Yeah, okay, that's a real bummer. You know what, though? I think this is really an interesting move in that there's so many different services where, like, I already pay my $10 a month for Google Music, so I can have all the music and never have to think about buying anything. I do the same thing with Netflix for my streaming. and having all you can eat books, all you can deliciously eat ebooks. I guess the difference would be that you can technically get a subscription like this for things you can eat, in that there's plated, but you have to still make it yourself.
You could actually do an Amazon subscription for snack foods.
You could, but I mean...
But it wouldn't be all you can eat. It would only be what you pay for that particular snack.
Oh, so that's an untapped market,
Yeah.
is what I'm getting at.
That's the next thing for me.
That's the next thing, because it seems everything else has been done, all forms of media, so we just need all-you-can-eat junk food.
Like $10 a month, just send me snacks. Actually be into that. GigaOM reports Lenovo announced it will no longer sell Windows-based tablets in North America if they're smaller than 10 inches. They'll still sell the 10-inch and larger ones. Remaining stock will be diverted to countries where demand is higher for the small tablets. Those include Brazil, China, and Japan. Lenovo will continue to sell smaller Android-based tablets in the North American market. The next web reports Dell will start accepting Bitcoin for all items sold on Dell.com to U.S. customers to start with. This is a pilot program. If it goes well, the company may consider expanding it internationally. Bitcoin payment processor Coinbase will power the payment process. Dude, you're buying a Dell with Bitcoins, Darren.
Yeah, I just feel like they're missing an opportunity to also integrate Doge in the same, fell swoop. But just it's epic to see more companies, and pretty legitimate ones, taking this on. It legitimizes the currency. Can
you imagine buying an Alienware box with Bitcoins?
Yeah, sure, why not? No, but that's the funny thing. It's like, we laugh now. If this trend continues, we won't be laughing.
No, it'll become totally normal. You're absolutely right. I'm thinking of it from the perspective of someone who got some Bitcoins when they weren't worth anything, and now is like, well, crap, I could actually spend like 4 Bitcoins and get a computer.
What's really weird in the inverse of the old web on this is that, could you imagine the hilarity if Dell made an announcement saying they're now accepting PayPal? That would be funnier.
Right. They're just finally getting PayPal. TechCrunch reports on a new search engine called Indexious, which searches databases of stolen names and passwords. Interestingly, the databases not only include what you might expect, big targets like Yahoo and Adobe, which could provide a service. You could be able to find out, like, is my name in there? But they also index smaller sites, including some forums where attackers discuss stealing usernames and passwords. Brian Curbs tracked down the creator of the index, Jason Relinco, from Lisbon, Portugal. The site charges Bitcoins for various features, though it now allows requests for removal of information for free. Originally, they were charging people for that.
Hey, it'd be a shame if everybody could pull your docs. Yeah, I don't think that the guys over at Hack Forums are kind of used to getting this kind of like spotlight, especially from Brian Curbs. So, seriously, the first thing that my tinfoil hat thought when I saw this was, oh yeah, that's a honeypot. Because like it allows you to search like, oh, let me just type in my email. Let me now just type in my real name. Like, all of those things are what I would be just, like, piping out into a log file and being like, whoa. I should create my own that says, hey, type in your password here, and I'll search all the databases and see if it was
your
found.
Password is there.
Wink, wink.
Which, if you think that password has been stolen, then logically you should have gone and changed it elsewhere, but... People being people, yeah.
Yes, people being people. I should probably point out here, though, Troy Hunt, an awesome security researcher, has actually already done this in a way more legitimate way with haveibeenpwned.com. It searches over 163 million pwned accounts. So you can just go there, and it searches all the major data breaches.
Yeah. And
I trust Troy.
That does the major ones. I don't know if he went after the hacker forums like Relinquo did. That's sort of the interesting side note here is like, hey, you guys get hacked too, and I'm going to expose that. I don't know if that's what he was doing on purpose.
Right. Well, I mean, we all do. Do you run a forum? Have you been hacked? Yeah. If your answer is no, you don't know that you have.
Exactly.
Trust
if
me,
your answer is no, please check.
Yeah.
Because guess what?
Yeah, if you think you haven't. Is that PHP BB you're running? Oh, gosh. Anyway.
Time for some news from you. These are things submitted on our subreddit at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Get in there and join in on the fun. There's like 2,800 folks in there having a good time, posting things. Sometimes they're just posting things that are of interest to each other in the Daily Tech News Show audience. But what I look at it for is to find out what stories people are really interested in. I look at the votes just as much as the submissions. Captain Kipper posted the TechCrunch story that the FCC has received more than 1 million comments and growing from the public regarding its proposed open internet guidelines. Comments range from form letters from people like Joe McTrusty was the first one that I saw. Maybe it's his real name, to long pleas from groups like Public Knowledge and businesses like AT&T. After tonight at midnight, the process moves into the stage that allows the public to respond to these comments from this first period of comment solicitation.
Tom, I'm trying to prepare myself, and this is a big difference between the fell swoop that was, say, the revelations with a different agency, NSA, versus here where it's kind of like this process in motion. And so what a lot of us had to go through when those bombshells were dropped on us is finding some way to rationalize with the fact that we were being spied on and will continue to be spied on, and that's just how the world works, right? What I'm trying to prepare myself for, don't get me wrong, like, fight the good fight. We are going to fight this good fight, but I am terrified of how to rationalize if we lose net neutrality other than creating our own hacker-based suborbital mesh network.
Yeah. I think we should do that anyway.
Maybe it's, well, yeah, I know. I'm just wondering if my fears are unfounded, if I'm trying to rationalize too early, and if so, how we will. Because I don't know if I can live on this internet if this goes through.
I have a feeling, I'm almost of the opinion that no rules would be better than the rules that are being bandied about. But that's why we have the comment period, right? Norm Gregory submitted the CNET story that PC Advisor thinks Amazon is about to release an Amazon Prime Instant Video app for Android. And if that isn't rumory enough for you, it could feature 4K resolution. Because reasons. That's why. Amazon has an iPad and a Kindle app for Amazon Instant Video, but only some rather inconvenient workarounds can get you your Amazon purchased video on Android right now. Amazon's Fire Phone is due out July 25th, which makes CNET's Scott Webster think that might be a good day for an Android version of Amazon Instant Video to arrive.
All I can say is it's about time.
Yeah, definitely. When this eventually happens, which it should, it's too late. Not too late, but it is late. You should have had this out a long time ago. John Z776 and Galcium both submitted the story from yesterday that Level 3 believes that Verizon implicated themselves when they posted their chart accusing Netflix of being at fault for their own streaming problems in a continuation of negotiation by press release. Level 3 points out that Verizon admits its interconnection is at capacity, and Level 3 says, great, we'll fix it. It's with us. We will magnanimously offer to pay for the equipment to upgrade it, although Level 3 less magnanimously did not offer to change their peering arrangement based on the decidedly different ratio of traffic that would happen as a result of that upgrade. Listen, people, I go on this rant a little bit regularly, but I want to make it clear. I'm not a network engineer, but from what I understand from talking to people who are, Verizon, Level 3, and Netflix, all three are undergoing what is rather a normal peering negotiation involving a change in forecasted traffic. And whenever that happens, everybody tries to get the best deal. The only difference in this case versus thousands of previous negotiations carried out by sites like Google, like Facebook, that you never knew actually existed. They've got peering arrangements, some paid, some not, is that this one's being carried out in public, and therefore it's not being carried out very politely in some cases. But it's all about these companies trying to get a better deal than they had before, or save money, or somehow, stop the payments from going to the other guy and get the payments going to them. None of these three companies are going to share any of this money with you. So if you're cheering for one side, it's like cheering for two financial companies who are trying to get a great deal out of each other.
Now, Tom, I'm not necessarily a network engineer either. However, I'm a former systems administrator and a part-time conspiracy theorist. And I'll just point out that if you look closely at the Verizon logo, it does in fact show the line of quality of service to the point where you give them more money and then the restoration of service. It's just,
I tell you what,
it's uncanny, that logo.
The one argument that I agree with from a consumer point of view is I'm paying Verizon to deliver me service. And for whatever reason, their negotiations are degrading the ability for me to get Netflix. So fix it. Whatever you have to do, Verizon, I'm paying you. And I am a Verizon customer. Just go fix it. Actually, I don't even really have that many problems with Netflix on my connection, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, if I'm paying Verizon as a customer, I want that stuff to be fixed. That's a look at the headlines. Hey, if you would like a show that is weekly about technology and geeky topics, we've got one for you on the Frog Pants Network called Current Geek. Brecky Thomason, he was on DTNS yesterday. He's going to be on Current Geek today, along with Eric Van Skyhawk, a.k.a. Hawkito. Check it out, Current Geek, currentgeek.com, co-hosted by myself and Scott Johnson. We will be talking about some of the Daily Tech News Show type topics and some video game topics and comic topics and stuff like that. So come join us, won't you? CurrentGeek.com. All right, Michael McDonald, thank you for waiting patiently while we did our headline chicanery. Michael is a former military air traffic controller, both tower and radar, a commercially certified pilot since 2007, an aerial applicator. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's the technical term for crop duster.
For crop duster. And he lives and works in Colorado. You wrote us what I feel like is a template for an insightful and respectful way to shine a light on another side of an argument. You were saying that you want Amazon to deliver packages by drones as much as anybody else, but you have some concerns about how this all gets implemented.
Yeah, I'm, like I said in there, I mean, we currently, everybody that flies probably within the altitude range that these drones would operate, which is probably within 500 feet above ground level. We also share the sky with aerial applicators as myself, you know, law enforcement, news, emergency helicopters, life flight, you know, these kind of operations, and I could foresee where, you know, there are certain things with you know, the see and avoid. Right now we work under VFR or we work under visual flight rules, VFR, and that requires us to see and avoid. You know, as a pilot, we have an incentive to look out the windows, and if we see something coming at us, take evasive action, because it's, you know, it's a benefit to our health. And, you know, I understand with these drones, you know, I've been an Amazon Prime member for 5 years, and I probably order 4 things a month at least. And yeah, it'd be great if I needed a cable for something, and I could just order it in the morning and it'd be here in the afternoon. But you know, I operate my airplane from anywhere from 10 feet above the ground or above the crop to 150 feet, usually maybe 200 in the turns at the highest. These are going to be the areas I suspect where these drones are going to operate, because they'll probably be most efficient. You know, you don't want them to go too high unless they're going to catch some kind of wind benefit. But you know, the FAA moves slow, as everybody's. I mean, and I'm not a huge proponent. I'm not a huge proponent of them. I have a really good relationship with all the people that I've worked with in the FAA, but I think I think it's good that things are going a little bit slower, because, you know, everybody sees, oh, these drones, they'll be great, it'll be awesome, you know, I'll be able to get my stuff faster, but they don't see that they don't see us except in the rural areas. Well, you know, people in the rural areas like myself, we buy stuff off of Amazon and rely on that delivery. Well, I'm going to be somewhere between the Amazon, you know, like in Denver. I suspect they would have a place in Denver. Drone leaves Denver, comes to deliver something in the area where I'm operating. You know, I'm in a turn. I'm looking out the window looking for obstacles. I'm not looking for, you know, like airplanes, other crop dusters. But when I'm coming back in the field, I'm looking at the field to make sure, you know, I miss the wire, I don't hit the trees, you know, and I level off at the right altitude inside the field. And, you know, however big these drones are, I mean, even if they're 4 feet by 4 feet, that's an awful small target for us to identify.
Yeah,
and
a little quadcopter like that's going to be hard to spot.
Yeah, and I mean, the creation of the FAA was due to somewhat of a situation over the Grand Canyon. I'm sure you're aware of that, where
All right,
two
the plane
airlines.
collision. Right.
Yes, correct. And that's because the skies over the Grand Canyon at the time had just enough clouds that they couldn't see each other until the last minute, and then it was too late.
Right, and so the FAA's mandate from Congress then, when they were created as part of the Department of Transportation, was to maintain the air safety of a new fledgling industry, which was the air travel, the commercial air travel, and then it also encompasses general aviation for pleasure and things of that nature. And you're right, they've totally just been like blindsided by the whole fact that, oh, our skies are being used, and had traditionally been used by modelers, and that had been self-governing for the longest time. But in the last couple of years, there's been an explosion of this stuff because of the inexpensiveness and availability of quote-unquote drones or RC aircraft. And I'm glad you're here, Michael, because you bring up a perspective that I completely missed, which is, from the RC modeler's hobbyist standpoint, you have this kind of like common knowledge that is, oh, just stay under 400 feet and you'll be fine, because commercial aircraft and general aviation stay 500 and 1,000 feet above unless they're landing or taking off, in which case, since you're 5 miles away from an airport, or at least you should be anyway, it won't be a problem. But you bring up a lot of use cases in which, no, you're right, under those visual flight type of flying, you're like you as a crop duster could totally, by the time you would see a 4-foot quadcopter, it would be too late, and both of us would be thinking we were in the, flying safely. So I totally see that, and I see that where the moving at the speed of government that the FAA is doing is kind of at odds with the moving at the speed of Silicon Valley, where, say, the Facebook model is move fast and break things, and maybe we don't want move fast and break things when it comes to our skies.
No, my thing is I still think the FAA is moving way too slow on this, but I think what would be more beneficial, especially towards aero modelers and people that want this kind of stuff, the common Amazon customer that would like to have this drone, is that they need to be educated that, okay, not only are you sharing, are these quadcopters operating in this altitude, but all these other safe, like law enforcement and life flight. A life flight helicopter pilot doesn't need to be worrying about flying from an accident out on the interstate to the hospital and worry about a drone, being in his way, because he's got other priorities.
I think you bring up some really good points that the general public just doesn't think of. They think, oh, drones in cities are going to cause the problem because there'll be lots of things in the air.
No.
And you're bringing up the very valid point that actually the cities aren't really the issue. It's the unanticipated drone from Amazon that's flying out across the interstate. And like you say, there's a life flight helicopter taken off from an accident that doesn't realize that drone is there. It's hard to spot. So you need, the solution. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the audience saying, well, then we need to just have like regular flight paths for the drones to fly on, which is why you need the FAA to rule on this. Like you say, they're dragging their feet. And so there's some criticism to be applied here about the speed at which they're doing this, but there is a necessary reason for them to examine it because it's more complex than people think at first, I think.
I think that what would be best to everybody's benefit would be some form of education saying, it's not just because we don't want these things in the air. However, general aviation has suffered in the last 10 years because the FAA has gotten less and less GA friendly and more commercial friendly with the airlines and stuff. So, and that's another topic that I won't even go into. But the thing is someone needs to put out some kind of, and the FAA should be the one to put out the educational information. It's not just that we don't not that we don't want these. It's just that we also have these other things that we got to think about. And that if you were in an accident and you were on a life flight helicopter, do you want the pilot worried about a drone? And the thing is an autonomous drone, it could technically fly in IFR conditions where you can't see. We as VFR pilots, we can't fly unless we have a minimum of 3 miles visibility, 1,000-foot ceiling, in certain airspaces. And if we don't have that, then we won't be there. Drones can fly all day long, except for helicopters, which don't need that requirement. They can have any visibility.
I think it's interesting that you bring up some of the use cases in which an aircraft, whether it's a public aircraft or general aviation, or otherwise, would actually be under that, ceiling of 400 feet where, say, for search and rescue or a police helicopter and things of that nature, which are, in fact, interestingly enough, the same kinds of applications that drones can truly innovate in that space and actually bring. For example, there was recently some researchers from a university that came up with a system that would could potentially detect survivors from a natural disaster based on their cell phone by flying around the area and geolocating their cell phone's RSSI, and actually come up with a good approximation of where that survivor may be. That's some additional innovation in that regard, and it's kind of weird because we are, as Americans, we're definitely entitled to our freedom of cheap gas and fast muscle cars and cheap shipping and drone delivery. That's just like a whole nother beast. And at the same time, then there's, of course, that knee-jerk reaction, which we've seen from the FAA in the recent policy revisions, where it's almost like they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater there, where they're like, whoa, this is new and different. Let's just ban. Let's just like the national parks. Let's just ban all of this until we can kind of sort it out. And you come up with very important insights here in that you're right. Drones can totally fly IFR. They can fly with just instruments, no eyes, completely autonomously. In fact, recently there was some epic development as far as drones' ability to learn from sensory input. And literally see and avoid moving objects that aren't even necessarily broadcasting, say, what a typical airliner would broadcast, an ADS-B beacon, these transponders that you find on some of the larger aircraft, which already have implemented things like TCAS, a traffic collision avoidance system that automatically makes sure that Boeings don't hit Airbuses and things of that nature. So that kind of technology can trickle into to drones as well.
Well, I could see if I could see where the FAA might mandate that any of these drones of this type that are used in a commercial operation would be required to have an ADS-B transceiver on it. And because the way that the ADS-B works is it sends a signal down to a ground station, that rebroadcasts it to everybody else, and then everybody else that has an ADS-B receiver can actually see that traffic. See, being an air traffic controller, knowing the limitations of your normal radar, we don't aim the antennas all the way down to the ground because of the fact that you get so much ground clutter on the scope. You wouldn't be able to work. You wouldn't be able to see your targets. So therefore, you have, say, 50 feet or 100 feet or even 500 feet or 1,000 feet that you can't see in mountainous terrain because of the fact that mountaintops vary so much that you wouldn't be able to see these. But with ADS-B, that somewhat solves this. And commercial airlines aren't going to care because the thing is that they're taking off, they're through 500 feet so fast on takeoff that unless and I'm sure what they'll do is they'll make sure that drones can't be within probably at least 3 miles of any airport because of that. So that way,
this has actually been already covered by some of the other agencies. Like, for example, in the United Kingdom, it's not as much of a problem as it is here. They've already sorted it out, their version of the FAA. I forget the acronym. But, for example, model aircraft or RC hobbyists can fly however they'd like as long as they're no closer than 50 feet from a building. They've already put in place sane regulations instead of just throwing everything out and saying, nope, can't use the skies.
Well, Michael, I think one of the things that I'm most happy about that you wrote into us is it lets us get a perspective that says, look, there are ways to solve these problems so that we can all get what we want, but you do need somebody to look at it and make sane regulations like Darren is saying. So thank you for writing in. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And if you guys if this topic comes up and you want, like the whole certification and commercial use of drones, I mean, we have a whole section of that right in the Federal Aviation Regulations that I haven't even touched for, that. We can discuss this all day long. I got plenty of time.
Whole other can of worms. Well, maybe we'll do a special. That'd be kind of fun. We'll toss that around.
Sounds good.
Real quickly, I want to check in on the calendar. Tomorrow, July 19th through 22nd, the Cloud Identity Summit, a gathering of online security experts, takes place in Monterey, California. You can visit the aquarium while you're there. And on July 20th through the 24th in Portland, Oregon, it's OzCon, the open source convention sponsored by O'Reilly Media. And coming up this Monday, July 21st, Netflix reports its Q2 earnings. Our pick of the day comes from me. Scientific American is going to be my pick. These picks, I'm floored that so many people send us picks, and I love sharing picks from the audience. The whole idea was, if we're not going to have advertising, people were complaining, but sometimes I find out about new products from advertising that you have. So I'm saying, well, I'll just tell you about some stuff that I enjoy, and we've been getting great suggestions from the audience. Scientific American is the magazine I've been reading every month, cover to cover, since the early 90s. I think since about 1991, 92. I used to just go buy it every month. I'd save up my money, and then eventually I subscribed. I've been a subscriber forever. But the reason I like it, Mariette DiChristina, the editor-in-chief, does a fantastic job of continuing the tradition of having actual researchers write articles while also having smart journalists come in and expose you to things that you might not know about. And even as a monthly magazine, which seems kind of weird for a technology podcast to recommend, it gives you a whole world of perspective on things that you wouldn't otherwise get a perspective on. Things like biology, things like quantum mechanics, things like cosmology, and lots more. So I at least check out their website. They keep up on the news in between the magazine posts as well, very well. They have a very interesting post about the Malaysian Airlines crash that's up there right now. scientificamerican.com. Send your picks, if you've got them, to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. All right, people in the chat room have been going nuts for Len's art. Len, what do you got?
I wasn't able to see what people were saying, but Fridays with Darren, we usually end up talking about drones, and it's getting more and more difficult for me to come up with some new art. So what I did is the next logical step in drone technology, of course, is going to be the Darren drone, which of course is maybe
Why
it's
is
a
he blue?
Pixar thing. But it's a Disney Pixar thing, like planes, like Disney planes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So it's like cars, planes, drones.
Exactly.
Is this a good enough approximation?
There it is.
You look like Steve Martin.
Yeah,
Oh man.
He's a wild
This
and
was a lot of fun
crazy
to do.
drone.
This was a lot of fun to do. My favorite part of it is the little tagline, delivering the goods this fall.
That's amazing, Len. And of course, the Amazon Arrow makes it perfect in the
Thank you
box.
so much. And it's
Len
available right now
Peralta-
in the store, yes.
Yeah, lenperaltastore.com is the place to go to find all of Len's art. If you're like, what does it look like? I want to see it. You can see it. You can buy it if you want there. Michael McDonald, thanks again, man, for joining us. Do you have anything you want to let folks know about, where to find you or follow you, engage your aerial application services?
I mean, for the most part, no, I'm at High Tech Ag Pilot on Twitter. I'm on Google Plus. It's my Gmail. It's my hightechagpilot@gmail.com if you want to look for me. I usually post pictures of my day, what I'm doing, if my plane's broke, what I got to do to fix it, things like that. So, no, I enjoy this. I download your guys' podcast, Hack 5, and everything, and load it on my phone and listen to it over Bluetooth in my helmet while I'm spraying. So it keeps me up to date. So
Cool, man. Well, I'm glad we entertained you.
Yeah, well, I have a computer consulting business. I got to keep current. If you stop learning, you fall behind. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you again, Michael. And of course, hak5.org is the place to find Darren Kitchen. What's on the menu this week?
I just love the idea that Michael's listening in his plane. So next time I'm doing an episode of Hack 5, I'm just going to be like, sync rate. Anyway, we've got an awesome episode. Our first, in fact, back from Tour Camp, where I have the pleasure of speaking to Mike Osman, an epic security researcher in the RF field, about the NSA playset. It is basically the hacker's version of the NSA ANT catalog. So we're talking about retro reflectors and other really fun stuff there. And Shannon has a pretty sweet SDR Sharps plugin segment, so check it out, hak5.org.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you, patrons. 4,157 folks have said, you know what? I get a little value out of this podcast. I'm going to give a little value back, and I sincerely appreciate it. You don't have to do it to enjoy the show, but the folks who do it make the show possible. So we always give them thanks. bit.ly/helpdtns if you want to find out more about that. Don't forget, you can have a voice in what stories we cover at our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. You can email us, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 512-593-2459. And listen to the show live, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:30 p.m. Pacific at mobile.alphageekradio.com. Our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back on Monday with Marcus Brownlee as our guest. See you then.
For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.
Yay!
Yay!
Very good.
Thank you all. That was a great show.
That was fun. We could drone on all day on that one.
Hey!
Tom, I'm really glad. Really glad the FAA made those updates to the policy definition of what a model aircraft is, because I know when I'm flying my quadcopter in an empty parking garage with my flight goggles on, seeing a first-person view from it, that that I'm not endangering, or now that I'm no longer doing that, I know that I'm not endangering 747s that may also occupy the same empty automobile garage.
Where did Darren go? Who's saying this?
Oh, I must be an imposter. You can find out more about that at DEF CON.
Okay, we got some good title suggestions here. The Sane Plane Game. Moving at the Speed of Government.
I think I say that every time we talk about any agency.
Drones Hide in Plain Sight.
That's cute.
Get it? Move Fast, Break Things.
Yeah.
Blame Game Level 3, referring to the Level 3 thing. And 99 Problems, but a breach ain't one.
Hmm.
And thanks to is it? Oh, never mind.
All right.
That's a cool new bot you got there. The what is it? Bang S. Does that go into something special? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's you put in your title submission after the Bang S, and it goes into the list.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Can you get like fortune cookie from the egg drop? Is there a special DTNS F serve? I love IRC so much.
Bang S, Archiver.
So Darren, I was looking at your Google Plus. I follow you on Google Plus, and I looked and I saw that. What I did is I saw that thing put out by those two guys about the ruling, and watched their video, and then I went back and I looked at the original Aero Circular from back in the 1980s about models.
That's in my wallet. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was, and then in addition to that, I went through and I read the 2012, basically the next gen improvements for so is it 336 or 366? Read through that, and that just gives us more clarification as to, see, Aero Circulars are,
they're memos.
Yeah.
This is what the FAA does. They make memos and policies. There's not much law they actually make. Now, if they would actually go through the proper comment and review period and actually make something that people can vote on and say, hey, this is good, then that would be fantastic. But up until now, they haven't been playing that game.
See, but the thing is, an
really frustrating.
An Aero Circular is not enforceable. An airworthiness directive is. So an airworthiness directive usually is for like an aircraft maintenance issue that has to be corrected because it's a it's a fault
Well,
and could cause failure of flight.
as we saw with the Trappy case, none of these policies are enforceable. At least when it does get to court, the NTSB throws it out, or doesn't throw it out, but I mean they're still appealing it. But it's
Right.
yeah, they're in a whole. It's just they're making themselves look so bad because they're showing no like sort of understanding of the landscape. They're just saying like huge swathing statements like, "Oh yeah, we understand that this is going to completely devastate a multi-million-dollar industry, but meh, we're the
Well, look what it
FAA.
did.
Here's your policy."
Look what it did to Light Squared. I mean, over that frequency spectrum issue, and that was not the fault of Light Squared. It wasn't the fault of the FAA. It was the fault of the guys of the GPS industry, because they decided that they wanted to be able to take just a little bit more spectrum. And the thing is when that came through, I wanted Light Squared to work because I want cheaper. I wanted another backbone provider for myself, and I wanted someone that maybe I could get higher speed at a lower rate. I'm with Verizon now. I mean. I have to use it because it's the only one that whenever I go to spray somewhere, I have service. I have friends that are on T-Mobile and AT&T, and they borrow my phone when we
Yeah.
go to
Well,
some of these
it's
remote
interesting
areas.
because it's very much the same issue when you talk about the governing bodies of spectrum and the governing bodies of airspace, because those are two things that actually are a finite resource. But what we should not forget is that it is a natural resource that should be free to all, and so that governing should have both commercial aspects and also public aspects. And as you were saying earlier about how the FAA has treated general aviation, it's very much akin to the way that we're seeing right now with the FCC and big business versus the will of the people. It's the same kind of thing between commercial airspace use and the hobbyists and the people that are I don't want to say entitled, but privileged enough to actually own a Cessna 172 and enjoy that airspace. So
Right.
it's
Well,
frustrating.
I like I said, I was an aero modeler before I became a pilot, and our airport where we flew off of was on the airfield at the airport. We just had to call a tower, and we had to stay below 400 feet, because the thing is helicopters have the ability or have the right to fly below the 500 feet minimum. Fixed wing aircraft, the regulations, Part 91 requires us to fly over populated areas a minimum of 1,000 feet. That's supposed to give us enough time if we lose an engine to find a spot to put it down and do the minimal amount of damage. And and over sparsely populated 500 feet, or we can be lower as long as we're no closer than 500 feet to any structure, person, or
Right, and so given what, and I would think I would actually say, as far as like a contribution, one of the contributions to the conversation that you've given, the insight that I had not had before, was thinking about, you're right, outside of the context of just takeoff and landing, there is quite a few reasons for aircraft under that flight envelope, and so you can't just say, oh, anything 400 AGL and below is drone space. And so, though, given that the FAA will actually require for commercial drone use a certificate of airworthiness, something that they've only done twice now, it seems only obvious that the FAA would mandate that part of having that COA would actually be a collision avoidance system on the drone side, because like you said, it's very difficult for the pilot as a visual line of sight to be able to see even a 4-foot drone. However, the drone has all of those sensors. It's flying practically autonomously anyway. In fact, it may be completely autonomously, so there's no reason why it wouldn't be able to very easily detect these things and avoid them. And if that were the case, if there was a technology that could be certified, say a module that could be put into any sort of drone, then it would actually make it really easy for the FAA to give COAs out if, say, your implementation of your airframe happens to include this collision avoidance system.
You know what? That would be great. The only thing that I can tell you right now is that you know how expensive that will be, and how to make that little module to get it certified through the FAA, to get whatever. Because
The COA?
well, no, it's not a COA. It's a Well, there's an STC, or a supplemental type certificate, on any certificated airplane. You can get what's called an STC that says you can add it. But the thing is the FAA will require all the engineering data. You'll have to have years of proof of in service that it works and operates. I mean, what I'm saying is
that's why I'm saying you certify the module so that it can be implemented, or at least looking at it from a tech perspective and not a
right.
aero designer.
What I'm saying is I don't foresee that this is an impossibility. I don't suspect that you'll have a module, even if you were to get a module certificated today to allow for testing, I suspect it'll need at least 3 to 5 years of practical application in a test environment.
So what we may end up with is a couple of generic airframes that are certified to actually have payload capacity. And interestingly, those may in fact be the platforms from our friends over at Boeing and Raytheon and Lockheed.
Right. And
I wonder why that is.
Well, they got the money.
Sorry.
They got. I mean,
really close to my house, Darren.
Where's my tinfoil hat? Oh yeah. No, I'm just saying. Have you seen the stuff coming out of the now that defense spending is lowering, and these the military-industrial complex people like the Raytheons and Lockheeds of the world are like selling less Predators and stuff like that. They're like, well, we need to continue our UAS market and we can expand into the civilian space. But hey, FAA, our friends, the government, remember we give you all that money? Maybe you just hold things off until we've got a platform that you can certify, and then everybody can buy our thing, and then you get a safe airspace, and we get money, and everyone's happy.
I think this is an example where Light Squared provides a very good parallel, which is you have somebody wanting to do something sensible in a space that they're supposed to be able to do it. You have an entrenched interest that doesn't really care what the people are doing on the other side, but it affects the way they've been doing it because they didn't have to think about it before. And then you have a third-party interest that realizes there's a profit to be had in supporting the entrenched interests. And so the FAA doesn't have to even get direct pressure from the Raytheons of the world. Raytheon just has to kind of encourage the folks who are very sensibly saying, hold on, let's be safe, and fire that up and drag the FAA to follow their instincts, which is to go slowly. That's exactly what happened to Light Squared.
The only other testing solution that I could come up with for this would be that, say for instance in Denver, and I would say probably north of Denver, like in Thornton, that area, if they put it, say if they put a warehouse there and they have, and it's a drone delivery center, and the drones can go out. What they could do is they could make that airspace below 500 feet, they could, I guess, NOTAM it out or make it a TFR, basically a temporary flight restriction, and that would prevent any aircraft from being able to fly into there except in an emergency. But the thing is there's a lot of agriculture that goes on in that area still. So you're also gonna have to figure out how you're gonna work that over a heavily populated area where like, especially more so, I see more so the problem being more so with aerial application and those things, and power line and gas line patrols, than being with than in the rural or the suburbs versus being in the actual populated area. If they can get it approved over the populated area, that's not going to be a problem. And then they could say, okay, nothing under 500 feet here, or nothing under 400 feet. And then the drones could have their own airspace. But where I see out in the country, where if you're delivering to a location, of course battery technology has to improve, but say 20 miles out, you're going to run into those problems that I'm talking about. I want this. I would love to see it work.
Well, that's the thing, is the FAA could actually literally just put out the regulations, and the regulations could, and they have to by, what is it, September of 2015, or at least that's what the Congress says. But these regulations could even just say, like, in fact, I think this is what they're going to say, like, oh yeah, commercial drone use, totally cool, come get a CFR from us, and then that could take in of itself years and years. That's fine, right? And like certify, like these are the platforms that have been certified, and require those to demonstrate the ability to operate safely in that, like, in those rural landscapes like you speak of, where there are other, uses of the airspace that they're going to have to avoid. And so that's where the technology comes in, where it's like, using the stereoscopic imaging and other, like, LiDAR and other cool, just insert cool tech here to avoid that stuff, And I feel like the onus should be on the drone's part, and then the responsibilities on the drone operator. And so as long as you can, demonstrate, like, where the responsibility lies and who's involved in mitigating that risk, then as long as that's clearly defined, that's the only problem so far, is that the FAA is not very good at clearly defining much of anything.
Well, yeah, look at the Aero Circular that they put out in '81. That was,
the Aero Circular that Michael mentions is, it literally just says, hey, we noticed that that predating the FAA, there was this club called the AMA, the Aeronautic Modelers Academy, and they came up with some pretty good rules, and we acknowledge those as good rules. And all of that was all great, and the AMA and the FAA had a really good relationship until, I'd say, 3 weeks ago, when the FAA redefined their definition in a policy statement on what a model aircraft is, completely decimating the relationship with the AMA, and saying, like, oh, all of those cool guidelines you had of, like, how to fly safely with, spotters and with technology that actually enables you to fly safely, like FPV goggles and things of that nature. That's no longer model aircraft use, and that's, that's a lot of hex code, and you're outie. And so that's just an example of how it seems to me that the FAA is just like, well, that was like, do they not know? Do they not have anyone within their organization that's part of this community?
No, I'm sure there are error modelers out there. Like I said, I've worked with the FAA when I was in. See, I actually started crop dusting in Idaho. I've been in Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota, Texas, Montana, Wyoming.
Sounds like a Johnny Cash song.
Yeah, I was about to say. It sounds like. Oh man.
But I think that, and I've worked with the FAA in a lot of these locations, and when I'd say that they're, they always tell us that they're overworked and underfunded. They don't have enough people to do all this stuff, and so
that's
they're
every
looking.
Agency.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know that goes without saying, but it's just that seems to be their mantra nowadays, is that we're trying to get to it, but we don't have enough.
Well, that happened recently, and then Congress was like, "Oh, that happened a couple of months ago. Remember where?" Sorry, I keep switching back and forth between Darren and Imposter Darren, but that happened a few months ago, in fact, where Congress was like, "Oh, we see, FAA, that you're slipping on your deadline. You're not going to make it. Here's an extra. Forget what it was, like $2 million or so. It was a lot of money." They were like, "Here's extra money because you're sitting on your butt and not getting this done." As if throwing money at it's going to make anything better.
Well, I'm not saying I agree with this, but the other side of that story was we needed more money than they gave us to be able to meet the deadline, and so they gave us more money.
Okay.
But that seems a little like dog ate my homework to me.
You know what's kind of awesome that I think about this, now that Michael mentions that you used to crop dust in Idaho over those fantastic potatoes, I assume.
Yep.
You could... If things were to go right, you could be in the comfort of your place outside of Denver, crop dusting in Idaho.
Well, there's no, not really.
Yeah, you could. Come on.
There's one aspect of it. You also have to be licensed in that state to be an applicator to dispense what they call economic poisons, or the chemicals that we put out. Okay, and they're not all poisons. They're just...
Kawasaki has fantastic drones that'll do that for you, so that you don't have to sit in the big airplane with the lots of poison.
Well, the thing is say for instance there is a servo malfunction of some kind, and it ends up opening up and spraying over a populated area while it's en route to its location. Who's responsible? While there's a man in the airplane, I have the ability to, one, double check and close the spray handle. I have the ability to shut off the pump that actually pumps the chemical from the hopper out to the booms. And then I also have an emergency valve shutoff that actually slams shut a valve on the hopper so nothing can escape from it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It comes down to, like, you know, the risk and the responsibility. So, like, if one of Amazon's drones accidentally hit your crop duster, who would be responsible? I would say Amazon, right? It's their drone that hit you.
Okay, I've had a duck hit my airplane. And
well, that duck should have had insurance.
And it bent the leading edge of the wing in this far. Okay, it doesn't. Now a drone, and the thing is they said that these things can be up to 55 pounds. Well, a duck weighs 10, 15, maybe not even 20. If a 55-pound drone hit a wing, I mean, I've hit a tree with a plane before, and I know how bad it bent that wing up. Yeah. This is styrofoam.
I think I don't even know. This is maybe like 200 grams.
I've been watching your thing on Hack 5 with Peter on that drone built there. That's not styrofoam.
Okay, no, fair enough. That one's about 1,300 grams.
Yeah.
But
well, my thing is what I'm saying is.
Well, actually, no. I know what the where the responsibility is, because, for instance, I had one of 3D Robotics drones and I was testing it out, and they've got so many problems with their poor iris thing. But it went, for the lack of better terms, haywire, right? And it started going off on its own, like without any sort of input, trying to return to home, even though it was not set to. Anyway, point being, it's crazy to look in GoPro footage, because it's like making conscious decisions, changing altitude and course and stuff, like on its own path, like totally Cujo quad here. And I'm wondering, like, what is, after that incident, when it thankfully just crashed into a tree, what would be, what was the recourse? And of course I'm like looking through all of the law, and I'm looking through like the policy from the manufacturer, and of course they do, like, you know, like trust me, I know you do, which is like, you got a nice big happy disclaimer, you're like, just, you know, don't be an idiot, it's not me. And then I'm like realizing, like, even if I had AMA insurance or something, this wouldn't cover it. I'm not at a park, and so again, it's like the responsibility is on the drone operator. So if I hit a car, well, then I would be, my personal insurance company would be talking to their insurance company to work it out, right? It's just that it gets a lot more potentially, you know, expensive, aka dangerous, when you're talking about in the same airspace as something carrying like lots of people. I mean, I guess you, yeah.
The biggest with fixed wing airplanes, yeah, I can see where, I mean, you could probably hit one of these things and still be able to land the airplane. It might not be pretty, but if you were to hit a rotor on a helicopter with it, and it knocks that rotor out of balance, they get a vibration, and that goes back to the hub, and that shreds everything at the hub, and therefore, you know, an emergency landing in a rotorcraft might not be so easy.
Right.
And those are just some of the safety aspects that need to be addressed. I'm not saying that, you know, because of this, you know, we're not going that they should just, you know,
and so
86 it.
If the FAA does want to 86 it and does want to get Congress behind them on the whole idea of just, like, you know, decimate, just whatever, get rid of this hobby industry, all they have to do is send a Phantom 2 into the rotor of a helicopter and then demonstrate and say, hey, look, see, Congress, we told you these things are bad. Look, we've been showing you all these reports of them, like, flying into our airspace around airports in Vancouver and whatnot, like, you know, getting in the way of a flight path. That's the next step if you're going to.
I don't think. You know, you're right. They could do something like that. I don't think, though, that the modeling community, the AMA, I mean, there's a lot of money in the AMA. I mean, not a lot, not as much as like in the, you know, like the AOPA, but which is the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. But I mean, they have their own lobbyists and stuff like that. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, you know, I'm just bringing up some of these aspects that, you know, a lot of people think.
I'm totally just conspiracy theorying out, though. I'm not, you know, positing that the FAA is actually flying Phantom 2 drones into flight paths just so that they can prove to Congress that they need to be outlawed, because that would just be too easy.
With that, we're gonna have to go.